The thing I'd like to do is to welcome you here today and say how delighted we are that you've got such a good day to be here, because it's not the best on a wet day. But you've picked the right day, and all I want to know now from you, how much time have you got, and we can work our program around to suit that. Now, if you've got an extra half hour that you think you could use, other than on the tractors, then we could take you for a scenic drive up the ridge onto the hill, and you can get a panoramic view of the...
Right, well that's on the list of priorities.
Right, Ford had built a tractor as early as 1907, but it wasn't until 1917 that he first line mass produced the Fordson F, and that's one in the corner there. And the first 6,000 of those went to Britain for the food drive at the end of the First World War. Now by 1918 the first shipment had arrived in New Zealand, and in the early 20s he established a plant in Cork and Ireland for the European and the export trade. And in 1929 he developed the Fordson N, and that later became known as the Cork model. Now they're quite rare really, because they've only produced for 3 years. And Ford became so disillusioned with the Irish and their attitude of putting things together and that he shifted his plant to Dagenham in England. And from then on all the Fordsons were built in Dagenham in England. And when he shifted the plant to Dagenham in England, he improved the tractor by putting a governor on it and relocating the driver position, putting him behind the rear axle to get it to sort of alleviate the problem of noise, heat and dust. Then at the end of the war, in 1945, he produced the E27N, and that's the big high model, and he was still using the N motor. And the last of those came off the assembly line on the 17th of January 1952. Then he developed the Fordson Major diesel, and that was his first diesel, and many people will have it that was his best car. And I tend to agree to a point. And then of course later in the 60s he produced the 4000s, the 6610s, 40 series and so on, which are current today, and that's one from there. So that's briefly the history of Ford and his tractors. He got interested in mass producing tractors for England for the food drive during the war, because they were very short of food and very short of means of producing food, and so he decided he'd build a mass producer tractor for their needs. And he was going to build it in England, but the Germans started bombing with the Zeppelins, and so he thought there's no good building a factory there, they'll only blow it up. So he built his plant established the plant in Detroit in America, and that's where they were first made. And I guess Detroit is still, Fords are probably still made there, but most of the English and the export stuff is made round the world, and Dagenham was the principal place where they were built, but now of course components of all makes of tractors come from all different countries, and they're put together all over the place, as you all well know, and the Japs have a big input into that part of it. So that's roughly briefly the story of the Ford, and I think now if we want to see a few go, we'll crank a few up, give you a drive.
What about yours? When did you start collecting?
When I started collecting, I started a little over 20 years ago, and I started to think about the old Cork model that I'd had, and I thought, well, if I could locate it, I would restore it. But of course, I never did find it. But in my travels, I came across a Dagenham model, and I thought, well, that's going to have to do, because I couldn't find a Cork. Anyhow, we got the Dagenham model restored, and of course, you've guessed it, I'd no sooner done that and I found a Cork model. So we brought that home and we restored that, and got that going, and the fellow had an old F, and he said, well, you better pick that one up. So we picked that one up and got that going, and that was pretty good. So then we thought, well, all we need to do now is to get an E27N, and we'll have a complete set of Fordsons, because we were currently operating the Fordson Major Diesel and the 4000s and so on. So we got an E27N, plenty of those around. But when I started restoring, there was no vintage tractor club in the area that I could join. So I joined the vintage car club, because I felt I needed to be in touch with people involved in the business of restoration. And that was okay. I went to 1 or 2 shows with them, static display of tractors and so on. But they said to me, look, Karl, if you want to really involve yourselves in the vintage car club activities, what you really need is a road runner. And we suggest you get either a Model T 1-ton truck or a Model A 1-ton truck. You can cart your tractors around on it. It'll be an added interest for the public, and it'll be an added dimension to your hobby. And I thought, well, that's okay, but I couldn't sleep. Teas and A's are not exactly my cup of tea. I'd never had one, didn't know anything about them. I thought, well, perhaps I wouldn't mind a V8. So I started looking for a jail bar, and knowing my prowess and searching out tractors, I thought, well, it won't take me long to find one of those. Well, there are plenty around, but not many available, and eventually I found one that was. And by God, if I had my time over again, I'd have not bought it either. When I got it home, it was in far worse condition than we realised. We pulled it to bits. Would you believe it? 10 years and $10,000, there she is. Later, there she is. But anyhow, the lady I bought the tractor off, the truck off, her husband had died, and she was selling up the gear and getting off the farm. Incidentally, I bought a tractor off her at the same time, but the day I picked the truck up, she was in tears. Oh, it's a jolly shame, she said. It was just pride and joy, and she was very upset about parting with the truck, and I said, well, look, don't worry about it. I'm taking it home to restore it to its former glory. Well, and when I get it finished, I'll be back and you can have a drive. Well, she was rapt. That made her day. She thought it was the best news she'd had in a long time. Well, it took me so darn long to get back to her with it, but by the time I got back to her, she was long gone. So I guess that could be my next project, to try and locate and restore the lady that sold me the V8. Okay, well,
All you're doing is disconnect from the one drive.
Still trying to jump
I bet you're going round in a circle. Ah! You hear the rod coming on the tractor when you came aboard, Bill?
That's the big bridge, isn't it?
Watch the gate.
Oh yeah, it's a bit big enough. I like to put it in.
I think that's Karl himself.
He's on the back.
Goes in and out of water, you know.
700 acres all on.
Yeah.
500 on this block.
Hope my beak's not too big. You got the... Oh, you're taking a photograph of us all.
Over the edge there. Otherwise you get scraped off there.
Straight up the hill then.
He's on the way.
I wonder how he can do it.
You don't realise how you're going to break down and keep you upright.
Yeah. No, the secret's there, one foot forward, one back.
Was a chance. Full
going forward.
320 acres down all flat.
Yeah, and it's
On the flats itself.
320 acres
Oh,
down there.
right down to the creek, the river, the Otaki River.
That's called the wind coming through now.
You just don't do anything. You just keep going. You throw them up, you throw them off, you just scream straight on.
No, we're turning around now. Have a look
It's
now.
normally this time of the year too, with the one you get around.
Heavily island over there.
Starts going backwards.
Because a lot of jackers don't realise
Driving the back over the motor.
on a tractor you've got you're supposed to have the brakes locked together.
Oh, that's when you're supposed to be on the road.
But a lot of jackers don't realise if they actually brake one wheel out when it accelerates. That's what flips the tractor. That's what flips it. It's not the braking that does the damage, it's the acceleration of the driving wheel.
Because like when you
Spins
spin
around.
around bulldozer, you pull the
Yeah, that's what we do.
The whole road is following us.
300 milk it.
When you press the brakes, it'll come around very quickly because the track went faster.
Are you there? Keep rolling.
You get it all on all you people have come back and forth. That's what did it.
Anyway, he said he'd rather walk at the beginning.
You've got to stop and pick his passenger up.
The whole hill a bit better. Once established.
Right over there.
Yeah,
Cows got on. Which one? Crystal's Bend.
yeah, well, it was
Is that where the orchards get washed away?
Yeah, it used to go in there and do a 110-degree bend and come out again, and it was pointing straight towards Otaki, and that's what they were worried about. So it's been, well, I better not tell you, over $1 million anyway. I haven't told you. and putting a curb in there, they've put metal and shifted metal across. They've also put heavy rocks through there.
So they're
The
trying
rocks,
to reclaim it.
Yes. Straightening it virtually is what they're doing.
That's what they've aimed to do.
Yeah, yeah.
And that, there's a lot of theories on whether they've done the right thing or not, but okay, they've made the decisions and time will tell whether they're right or not. The boulders they put in, they actually brought down on a train from Tamarunui, a big quarry there. They're just a big round rock, up to 3 tonne each.
Yeah.
And they brought them down on the rail, tipped them off down by the Otaki Bridge here and brought them up the river on a dumper. There's actually a few there, if I know where there's a track there, you can see a few of them just stockpiled there. Yeah, that's some of them. They've brought a few spared here. We own quite a lot of river flats and they're exposed to the Otaki River. We get flooded on the odd occasion. It's just something we just had to learn to live with. Most of our ground is in the river flats. We've got probably about 180 acres of terrace country, with some over there. It ranges round through here, and then we've got the balance of it in hill, which is this block through here.
You get all the cars.
And how far boundaries? How far down?
Yeah, those cattle that you can see there, that's about where the boundary is. They're actually in the neighbours.
Oh, yeah.
And the north side, the east side here is that.
What's the rainfall here, roughly?
Oh, around the 40 inches.
Yeah,
Heading north, there's a little bit of horticulture. You can see some of it across the river there.
Yeah.
The Otaki River hooked into a big lot there. There was kiwi fruit and pear trees and apple trees going down the river galore there for a while. But the guys that developed it blame the regional council or the you know, they reckon they were at fault, but you know, should never be planted there.
Yeah,
They
yes.
need the rifts,
That's right. It's high risk really to plant right on the river. Because you've had a few floods in the last couple of 2 or 3 years, haven't you?
Yeah.
Was that big one that guy died?
That's right. Yeah, kayak.
Yeah, in the kayak.
Yeah, it took him an hour to come out of the gorge and he ended up at the mouth, they reckon. He picked up an hour later.
Yeah.
Fastest trip he's ever had. But there again, they sort of have a bit of a happy and have a go.
Yeah.
Tonight, we went down to Crystal Bend to see what it was like, and while we were there, a female ferret came running past with a little one in her mouth. She'd been washed out and was looking for another home for it.
Yeah.
But, it was, well, it came out and into here, round where that little stream is, it was flowing through there quite heavily.
What, it was flooded to cross to there?
Yeah, well, it comes in up here a bit and hooks into that one. And, yeah. Well, those flats can get fairly flooded. Yeah. You're not filming, are you?
He keeps looking at it. When you get a flood, do you get much of a build-up of silt there at all?
Yes, we get a lot of silt. Those river flats, you can go down 10, 12 feet in parts where you get straight river silt, and there's other bouldery ridges which have got nothing on them.
Yes.
It's just typical of river deposited cutting.
So the flats are steadily building up and up and up.
Yes, definitely. Yeah.
So as time goes on, you get fewer and fewer floods.
So it'd be very fertile.
The river beds are building up too. They do extract a lot of metal out of there, and that's saved a lot, and it's also saved Otaki too. But about 1980, they put restrictions on them. They felt they were taking too much metal out of the river, and that was a terrible mistake. They forced them into land excavation on the other side of the river there. They should never have done it. We started to get some heavy floods, and there was a lot of build-up of metal in the river again, and they went begging to them, come back, come back.
Yeah, otherwise the river bed just pulls up higher and higher, and then it floods the land again.
That's right. Metal excavation and removing it is the way. The principal uses at that stage were the railways. They were taking out the ballast for the railway tracks. Yeah. But also Windstone's got a plant below that one as well, which they use for metal, for concrete and Wellington. Without those two big uses,
Did the metal extractors come back?
Yes, they are. They didn't entirely pull out of the river, and they did come back, but they don't want the quantities that they were taking up at that time. At the time, the railways were doing the electrification of the main trunk lines, and they pulled a lot of metal out of that. And they had big trenches going right up the centre of the river, right up to here. It goes right up behind the bin. And they claim, and I don't know whether it's right or not, this is one of the fastest flowing rivers in New Zealand. Not New Zealand, the southern hemisphere. And it floods very quickly. It comes up, substantial flow, and it goes down very quickly. It's a very fast river. That's why it can do so much damage.
And it doesn't deposit any metal down at the gorge. It brings it all out here at the gorge. It is narrow and steep, and it blows it, washes it away. But out here it sprays out, and then that's why you have to trouble.
That's right. And really, the quarry should be at the bottom of the gorge, so you can't, taking the metal out before it gets out of there.
Yeah, it would be better.
There's a lot of erosion in the Otaki area. Although there's a lot of pine trees going in through there too.
I wasn't on that.
That's on, man. Come on, Charlie, get on.
He's not kind.
You could sit on my knee.
It might be good. I'll show you when I get downstairs.
Yeah, we'll slide forward now.
No, I got right.
Dave, you stay on. You can sit here.
Mum's running.
Yes, sit here and that should be all right.
Tell me.
Right now.
Right. Let's sit on the first.
She takes it off, it's too late.
Rest.
You want a hand up? How many more are coming?
Don't fall off it, Charlie.
Can't see a lot coming over going Hey.
We'll all get off and walk if you drive.
Hey, I'm getting off if Charlie's driving.
No, you're right.
You're coming up. Oh, you're right.
I knew he'd come today.
Young and fit. I was like that once.
Where's Christian?
I noticed he didn't answer that.
Hey?
Where's she going? Christian?
I never knew about that big kink in the river before.
No, I don't know. I haven't heard about it.
I knew that.
Get it up.
Are you ready, Charlie? Put your seatbelt on.
I was ready to bail out.
Are the L plates on?
The old
They don't have L plates here, do they? Whoop! I'm so
We're going backwards, John.
Do you want him moved again? Is she alright? Tell me, because sit on my name. Sit on them, which is why she takes the film. There's the nose. Where the nose is huge, isn't it? They got a big shield. It's a big shield.
Yeah, we're milking out 2 customers, we're going to bring up the top.
Oh, they were brilliant. You know, even on a winter's day, it's like this.
Oh, you didn't! Oh, you didn't!
He was certainly keen to have a drive.
Uh-huh. Woo!
No, it's fantastic. You wait till it skids and then you just flick the button on the 4-wheel drive and it just goes again.
Oh, great.
You're missing me here.
There's this gentleman a minute ago, Stuart. We're giving him a box of chocolates to give to his boss.
Oh, thanks very much. I think I ought to get them. Thank you very much. Very good.
So what did you say to me?
Do you want a beer?
I said, thanks very much. Would you like a beer? Yeah, have that.
Twister.
Yeah. First time. Yeah, don't need a
With the unloading. Oh, you've done that.
Portions of diesel, they're major. Is it? Yeah. So you wouldn't have to dip it in the wrong tank, would it?
Where's Stace there?
You don't mind him.
Hang on, let's do another one like that.
Now then, that's me done.
Good on Monday.
Yeah, I could sell the old thing there to do up and down. So it's a big problem.
Everybody had a run at me and said, how'd you get on with the tractor? And I said, we've got it going. I was going to get it painted, send you a photo and invite you down to have a drive. I'd love that, he said. And I said,